Most first-timers tackle Singapore in a straight line and reach Gardens by the Bay around 2 p.m., exactly when 90-degree heat and 80% humidity turn the open plazas into a slow ambush. By mid-afternoon, they are wrecked, hiding in a mall with half the day's plan abandoned. Sequence the city around the climate instead. Outdoors in the cool morning, inside the conservatories at noon, back out as the skyline lights up, and you finish every day still standing. Here are 4 days routed stop by stop with maps you can follow without overthinking a single turn. Day 1. Skylines, Supertrees, and beating the heat. Day 1 kicks off at Merlion Park by 9 a.m. And trust us, that early start time is not just padding. Cruise ships dock at the harbor overnight. The deck offers zero shade and the tour buses unload in waves not long after. So this early arrival buys you cooler air and unobstructed photos at once. For the shot everyone wants, head to the very end of the concrete pier in front of the statue. You'll get a clean sightline of the Merlion spitting into the bay, perfectly lined up with the 3 towers of Marina Bay Sands. Give this stop about 45 minutes to take in the Fullerton Hotel's facade across the water, and then keep moving while the morning air is still somewhat forgiving. The walk to Gardens by the Bay takes about 40 minutes along the waterfront. Jubilee Bridge, then Helix Bridge, with nearly 3 kilometers of harbor views the whole way. If the heat is already biting, a grab gets you there in 5 minutes. The outdoor Supertree Grove is free and worth a loop, but the reason you are here at midday is the 2 conservatories, which require a dual ticket. Inside the cloud forest, take the elevator directly to the Lost World summit of the 35-meter indoor mountain. Then work your way down the suspended walkways, descending alongside the artificial waterfall instead of fighting upstream through the crowd. The cloud forest is chilled to around 75 degrees to mimic a tropical mountain, so after a sweaty morning, that first blast of cold air is a shock to the system. Bring a light layer. Budget close to 3 hours across both glass houses. You'll exit the conservatories conveniently on time for lunch. Go to the garden's eastern exit to hit Satay by the Bay, saving yourself from any extra afternoon walking. The stalls run the full Singaporean lineup. Char Kway Teow, the wok fried flat rice noodles with cockles, and lap chiong, or nasi lemak, the coconut rice with sambal and fried chicken. Skip the satay for now. We are saving that for tonight. After lunch, the afternoon heat takes over, making it the perfect time to disappear into some air conditioning for a few hours. Whether you hit the hotel pool, wander the shops at Marina Bay Sands, or just nurse an iced kopi in a freezing cafe, take the break, but make sure you are back at Tower 3 by 5:30 p.m. for your SkyPark Observation Deck slot. Book the 5:30 entry ahead of time. Walk up is not a thing, and that timing lets you watch the harbor in daylight, sit through sunset, and catch the grid switch on from 57 floors up. Insider tip: that famous infinity pool on the SkyPark roof is locked to hotel guests only, and every influencer photo you have seen required a room downstairs. If you would rather keep the cash, the CapitaSpring Tower near Raffles Place has a free sky garden on its 51st floor, but you must book your time slot online in advance at their official site. Access is weekdays only, 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. or 2:30 to 6 p.m. No walk-ups, no weekends. If the high angle is what you are after, you will get an even better version of it on day 3, riding a cable car directly through the core of a skyscraper at golden hour. Once the sun sets, head down through the shops to the event plaza for Spectra, the free light and water show over the bay. When the show wraps up, you are ideally positioned for dinner. Just hop aboard the downtown line for one stop south to Lau Pa Sat, a sprawling cast-iron Victorian food hall straight out of the 1800s. The hall itself is impressive, but the action is outside on Satay Street, which closes to traffic after dark and becomes Satay Street under the office towers. Head past the touts at the entrance, find stall 7 or 8, and order a mixed platter of chicken and mutton skewers with ketupat, the compressed rice cakes that soak up the peanut sauce. Tomorrow covers 4 cultures in one straight walk: Chinatown to Kampong Glam to Little India, and ends over a peppery pork rib soup on the river. Before we get there, save yourself the hassle and put that notepad away. We've taken this complete Singapore itinerary, every restaurant recommendation, all the reservation links, the insider tips of every stop, and packaged it into a free PDF guide for you. Scan the QR code on screen or visit itineraryinsiders.com to grab it. And if this video is helping you plan a smarter trip, tapping that subscribe button is the best way to let us know. Day 2, 4 cultures, 1 walk, and a route that makes sense. Your second day involves the most walking of the whole trip. To save your legs, the route is designed to run in one direct route from south to north. Start your morning at the Chinatown MRT, where Exit A ejects you right onto the pedestrianized Pagoda Street. Wander down past the Buddha Tooth Relic Temple, its red and gold facade housing what's claimed to be a tooth of the historical Buddha himself, and make your way to Maxwell Food Center. Insider tip: time your arrival at Maxwell for 11:30 a.m. sharp before the CBD office crowd floods in at noon. Maxwell is ground zero for Hainanese chicken rice, and the famous name is Tian Tian at stalls 10 and 11. If Tian Tian's queue has already ballooned past 45 minutes, walk 2 units over to Thai, run by Tian Tian's former head chef, serving a near-identical plate at a fraction of the weight. Regulars swear the difference is obvious. The locals are still arguing about it either way. One critical note: Tian Tian is closed on Mondays, in which case go straight to Thai at stall 7. You'll skip the queue drama entirely and still eat well. Jump back on the downtown line north to Bugis Station. A 5-minute stroll brings you directly into Kampong Glam. The anchor is the Sultan Mosque and its huge golden dome, and one detail stands out. The base of the dome is ringed with the bottoms of recycled glass bottles donated by poorer worshippers during the 1932 rebuild, so every congregant had a hand in its construction. Arab Street nearby is lined with old textile merchants, while parallel Haji Lane, the narrowest street in Singapore, runs wall to wall with independent boutiques, loud murals, and coffee bars built for exactly the photo you are about to take. The mid-afternoon, roughly 2 to 4:30, is the sweet spot here. Ride the downtown line 2 stops to Little India. You will know you have arrived before the train doors even open, because the station exit smells intensely of jasmine garlands, incense, and spice. Dive into the ground floor of the Tekka Center, which operates as a chaotic, authentic wet market and Tamil Muslim food hall. Grab a hot teh tarik, a pulled milk tea poured rapidly back and forth between cups until it forms a thick foam. You don't need a full meal here with dinner coming, just the tea and chaos. Going north up Serangoon Road brings you to the carved Technicolor Gopuram Tower, stacked with deities over the entrance of the Sri Veeramakali Amman Temple. To end the day, take the northeast line 1 stop south to the river at Clarke, Quay. The dish you've earned: bak kut teh, a clear, aggressively peppery garlic broth with pork ribs that are slow cooked until the meat slides completely off the bone. Song Fa sits across from the station exit, serving the Teochew style. Order the Yo Ti Ao dough fritters to dunk, a pot of strong tea to cut the richness, and let the staff top up your broth for free as many times as you can handle. Wandering the lit-up promenades of Boat Quay afterward makes for an easy cool-down stroll before bed. Tomorrow, we trade the streets for an offshore island, an aquarium, and a cable car, ending with a drink somewhere this spotless country actually lets you throw trash on the floor. Day 3, islands, aquariums, and a cable car at golden hour. Sentosa, the resort island off the south coast, used to be a British military fort and is now branded the State of Fun, which tells you exactly how hard it is trying. Most visitors make the mistake of burning a full day on a single theme park, so here's the call for a 4-day trip. Pick the Singapore Oceanarium over Universal Studios. To get there, take the Northeast Line to its end at Harbour Front, which delivers you directly into Vivo City Mall. Go up to level 3 to board the Sentosa Express monorail and hop off at the very first stop. The Oceanarium only requires a half day, giving you a fully air-conditioned reset right in the middle of the trip. The highlight is the open ocean habitat, featuring a viewing window the size of a movie screen where manta rays and massive Goliath groupers drift past. Universal is good, but its footprint is small next to its overseas siblings, and a whole day there robs you of the coastline. Save the roller coasters for a trip where Singapore is the only stop. Next, ride the monorail one stop south to its final destination, Beach Station. You can catch the free open-air tram right there to bounce between the coves. Lunch lands at Coast Sentosa on Siloso Beach. Wood-fired pizzas, grills, and beach seating with the sand under your feet. A step above hawker pricing, but earned by the view. From coasts, hop the shuttle west to Palawan Beach and cross the swaying suspension bridge to the small islet beyond it, often marketed as the southernmost point of continental Asia. The viewing towers there overlook hundreds of cargo ships parked in the strait, a reminder that this whole nation runs on being the busiest gateway in the region. Give the beaches 2 hours, roughly 3 to 5:30. Insider tip: skip the monorail on the way out and take the Singapore cable car off the island instead. Make your way up to the Imvia Lookout platform and get the round-trip Sky Pass so you can ride both the internal Sentosa line and the outbound Mount Faber line. Board around 6:30 p.m. right before sunset. The cabin floats over the active Keppel Harbor, threads directly through the middle of a skyscraper, and climbs up into the Mount Faber jungle canopy just as the sky turns orange. This is the cable car view we flagged on day 1, and it earns every cent. The second to last night calls for one big ticket meal or drink. Visit Level 33 inside the Marina Bay Financial Center, which holds the title of the world's highest urban microbrewery. It offers a head-on view of the bay that rivals the SkyPark, paired with a kitchen turning out things like 12-hour lamb shoulder and sustainably farmed barramundi. For history over altitude, the Long Bar at Raffles Hotel is the birthplace of the Singapore Sling, mixed there since 1915. The Sling is a pricey rite of passage, more than a great cocktail, but the Long Bar has the one truly unhinged detail in this spotless country. The floor is buried in peanut shells, because tossing them down isn't just allowed here, it's the tradition. Throw your trash on the ground anywhere else in Singapore and the fine starts at $1,000. Tomorrow slows down the pace with an orchid garden best seen before the sun is up to full strength, a street of candy-colored Peranakan houses, and a final meal built on a nut that is poisonous until someone ferments the danger out of it. Day 4. Orchids, Peranakan color, and the perfect last meal. The final day is all about winding down, but you need to start early to beat the heat. Go to the Botanic Gardens, Singapore's only UNESCO World Heritage Site. It has been growing since 1859 and opens at 5 a.m., making it one of the rare major attractions in the city with that kind of early bird schedule. Ride the Circle or Downtown Line to the Botanic Gardens station and enter through the North Gate. Most of the 82-hectare estate is free, but the one paid corner worth every cent is the National Orchid Garden, home to over 1,000 species and 2,000 hybrids, making it the densest concentration of orchids on the planet. Note that the orchid garden itself doesn't open until 8:30 a.m., so plan to arrive at the main grounds around 7:30. Enjoy a free hour wandering the wider estate and be at the orchid garden gate right when it unlocks. The garden runs an active hybridization program that names new orchid varieties after visiting heads of state. So yes, there is a Princess Diana orchid in there. One thing most visitors miss: this is also where the Southeast Asian rubber industry started. In the 1880s, the garden's first scientific director perfected a tapping technique that didn't kill the tree. The seeds shipped out of these grounds quietly built the rubber plantations that turned the region into a 20th century powerhouse. Insider tip: be inside the Botanic Gardens before 10:30 a.m. And when the heat catches up, duck into the Tan Hun Siang Mist House within the Orchid Complex, heavily air-conditioned for mountain species. Mondays draw fewer tour groups, so if your schedule is flexible, that's the best day to visit. By late morning, you'll be ready to trade the gardens for some architecture. Hop on the east-west line to Paya Lebar and take a grab down Ju Chiat Road. You are heading to Katong. This neighborhood trades the glass and steel of the marina for continuous rows of hyper-ornate, pastel-colored heritage shophouses, a visual signature of the local Peranakan culture. The street you want is Kun Sang Road, a continuous row of heritage shophouses tiled in colors that look almost printed. with carved gable ends and ceramic mosaics framing every window. It is the single most photographed stretch in the neighborhood. Lunch is non-negotiable here. Katong laksa, a fierce, spicy coconut and shrimp paste broth in which the thick rice noodles are deliberately cut short. You eat the entire bowl aggressively with a spoon. Absolutely zero fork-twirling dignity required. And yes, the fresh cockles and fish cake on top are mandatory. To close out the trip, we are heading back to the Civic District via a 5-minute walk from the City Hall MRT across the Padang Field to the National Gallery. The building alone justifies the stop. Two colonial landmarks, the old Supreme Court and City Hall, now house the largest collection of modern Southeast Asian art in the world. Head through the restored holding cells in the basement and the old Chief Justice's timber chamber for a peek at how the building used to function. Dinner is upstairs on the second floor at the National Kitchen by Violet Oon, the matriarch of Singaporean cuisine, who took Nyonya street food and dressed it in dark wood paneling and colonial tiles. Book ahead and order the Ayam Buah Keluak, a chicken stew built on a fermented black nut, earthy and almost like dark chocolate, with no real equivalent back home. The logistics in one place. Before we wrap up, here's the practical side. To keep your daily heat walks as short as possible, make sure you book a hotel directly above an MRT interchange. Splurge on the Fairmont Singapore at City Hall, sitting above the east-west and north-south line, crossing with air-conditioned tunnels running to the Esplanade. Or keep it cheap at Hotel Bencoolen on Bencoolen Street. 5 minutes from its own MRT station and single train access to every district on this itinerary. When you land at Changi Airport after a long-haul flight, skip the MRT. It forces an annoying transfer at Tanah Merah and eats up close to an hour, whereas a metered taxi or a Grab gets you to the city core in 25 minutes flat. Singapore moved fully onto the Simply Go platform in January 2026, so tap a contactless Visa or MasterCard on the gates for a flat daily fee. And fill out the no-cost digital SG arrival card within 3 days of landing, because immigration will not wave you through without it. When navigating hawker centers, you will notice locals reserve seats by dropping a packet of tissues on the table. Locals call this choping, so if you see a lonely napkin, absolutely do not touch it. Keep small cash on you for older stalls, since QR payments are processed through banking apps that only locals can access. When you look at menus, prices marked with a double plus sign include a 9% tax and a 10% service charge added to the final bill. Tipping is not a thing here, so treat that service charge as your gratuity. Make sure you grab a Singtel Tourist eSIM the moment you land so your maps keep running. Finally, take local laws seriously. Eating on the MRT is an immediate 500 SGD fine. Littering starts at $1,000, and bringing in chewing gum is actually illegal. These are real fines, don't test them. If you only have 3 days, simply drop day 4. The Orchids and Peranakan houses sit the farthest out on the map, so cutting them keeps the dense central core of the trip completely intact. If Singapore is just a long layover, you can still pull off a Changi stopover in a single afternoon. Leave your bags at a hotel on the east-west line, ride to Bayfront for the Merlion, and make a fast strike on the Cloud Forest. Grab some satay at Lau Pa Sat for dinner, and then get back to the airport early to stand under the Rain Vortex, the tallest indoor waterfall in the world, before your gate calls. 4 days in Singapore, and the math holds up. In 96 hours, you shot the Merlion before the buses and climbed down a cloud forest. You ate the chicken rice the locals fight over, sailed a cable car through a skyscraper at sunset, and finished on a stew built from a poisonous nut. If you are stitching this into a larger Southeast Asia run, check out our Southeast Asia Travel Itineraries playlist on your screen right now. We drop a new insider guide just like this every single week, so we will see you in the next one.